Thousands of dollars may flow into the register every single day, but a large portion of that money never actually belongs to the pharmacy owner. Between low-margin medications, high-profit products, taxes, and overlooked operating expenses, there's a huge difference between revenue and profit. The question is, how much is left at the end of the month for the person who invested in the business, and is it really worth it? If there is one type of business that seems to withstand almost any economic crisis, it is the pharmacy. While many industries depend on consumer confidence to make sales, pharmacies meet a permanent need. People may postpone buying a new phone, television, or even a car, but they are unlikely to delay purchasing medication when their health depends on it. That is exactly why this market generates hundreds of billions of reais every year in the United States, and continues to grow even during periods of economic slowdown. However, there's one detail that almost nobody talks about. When someone walks past a busy pharmacy filled with customers, the impression is that the owner is making money non-stop. After all, the cash register never stops ringing. Medications, vitamins, cosmetics, personal care products, supplements, and even specialty foods fill customers' shopping bags all day long. The constant flow of sales creates an almost automatic impression of wealth. But the financial reality is far more complicated. Now comes the most important part. A pharmacy's revenue can be impressive. Depending on its location, a single store can generate hundreds of thousands of reais in monthly sales. In high-traffic areas, monthly revenue can easily exceed 1 million reais. To anyone looking only at those numbers, it seems as though profits must be growing at the same pace. The problem is that revenue never means money in your pocket. A large share of every sale goes directly toward paying suppliers. Medications are highly competitive products, and in many cases, they operate on very slim profit margins. On top of that, discount programs, insurance agreements, promotional campaigns, and fierce competition among major pharmacy chains further reduce the room to increase prices. And this is exactly where most people lose money. While some products offer extremely tight margins, others are the real profit drivers of the business. Cosmetics, dermocosmetics, vitamins, dietary supplements, baby products, and personal care items typically provide significantly higher margins. That is why many pharmacies have evolved beyond simply selling medications, and now operate as true health and wellness convenience centers. This completely changes the picture. From the outside, every sale looks the same. Financially, however, selling a prescription medication can produce a completely different result than selling sunscreen, premium shampoo, or a nutritional supplement. It is this product mix that ultimately determines how much the owner actually earns at the end of the month. But there is an even more important factor. Before making the very first sale, the owner had already invested a substantial amount of money to get the business up and running. Commercial space, renovations, initial inventory, software systems, equipment, licenses, furniture, and working capital are only the beginning of the financial journey. And once you discover how much it costs to open a pharmacy, it becomes much easier to understand why two seemingly identical stores can produce completely different financial results. Opening a pharmacy may seem simple to someone looking only at the storefront. A few shelves, a counter, neatly organized medications, and employees helping customers. But there is an invisible cost that begins long before opening day. And this is where many entrepreneurs realize that this business requires far more capital than they originally expected. Depending on the city, the size of the store, and the business model, the initial investment can range from several 100,000 reais to well over 1 million reais. Larger locations in prime commercial areas or stores affiliated with major franchise chains can require even greater investments. These are market estimates, as every project has its own unique characteristics. The first major investment is the location itself. Unlike many other businesses, a pharmacy depends heavily on where it is located. Being on a busy avenue near hospitals, medical clinics, supermarkets, or densely populated neighborhoods can mean thousands of additional customers every month. But that advantage comes at a price. Rent in strategic locations often consumes a significant portion of the budget before the first sale is ever made. Next comes the renovation. The store must comply with specific regulations, maintain proper climate control, provide efficient lighting, include storage areas that meet health authority requirements, and have a layout that facilitates both customer service and medication management. All of this requires significant investment, but the biggest expense has not even appeared yet. The initial inventory is usually one of the largest consumers of capital. Unlike a typical retail store, a pharmacy must stock hundreds, often thousands of different products. Prescription medications, antibiotics, controlled substances, over-the-counter drugs, baby products, vitamins, cosmetics, personal care items, supplements, and basic healthcare equipment all need to be available to avoid losing sales. And that money sits on the shelves. Every box of medication represents tied-up capital. If a particular product sells slowly, the money invested in it also takes longer to return to the cash register. On top of that, medications have expiration dates. Poor inventory management can turn expensive products into pure losses if they expire before being sold. But there's another detail that few people consider. The law requires a licensed pharmacist to be present whenever the pharmacy is open. That means payroll expenses start out high from day one. Depending on the store's operating hours, especially for pharmacies that stay open late or operate 24 hours a day, it may be necessary to hire multiple licensed pharmacists. In addition to sales associates, cashiers, managers, stock clerks, and support staff. Added to that are computerized systems, prescription management, business software, security, electricity to maintain constant climate control, insurance, taxes, and enough working capital to keep operations running, while supplier payments and customer receipts occur on different schedules. Now, everything changes. After building this entire structure, the most important question arises: how does this investment pay off? Where does the money that actually makes a pharmacy profitable come from? The answer is not simply the number of customers, but the way each sale contributes to the bottom line. And that is where the most interesting part of the story begins. Once the doors open, many people assume that selling medications is all it takes for the money to start flowing in. But there is one detail that completely changes that perception. Not every sale produces the same financial result. In practice, two purchases with exactly the same total value can generate completely different profits for the pharmacy owner. This is where the business truly reveals what happens behind the scenes. The first source of revenue comes from medications. They attract customers every day and guarantee steady traffic. The problem is that many of these products operate on reduced profit margins, especially maintenance medications, highly competitive generic drugs, and those sold through manufacturer discounts or customer benefit programs. In many cases, the pharmacy has to accept a smaller margin to avoid losing the customer to a competitor. But that customer rarely buys only the medication. While waiting to be served or walking through the aisles, they encounter vitamins, sunscreen, shampoo, diapers, supplements, personal care products, beauty items, and healthcare equipment. These products often carry the most attractive profit margins in the entire operation. A single additional purchase can generate more profit than several boxes of certain medications. That completely changes the story. Imagine two customers spending roughly the same amount of money. The first buys only a discounted medication. The second purchases the same medication but also adds sunscreen, vitamins, and moisturizer. The total revenue may be similar, but the profit generated by the second customer is usually much higher. That is why increasing the average transaction value is one of the most important strategies in running a pharmacy. But nobody talks about this. The biggest enemy of profit is not always a lack of customers. Very often, it is hidden within the operation itself. Expired medications must be disposed of according to strict regulations. Shoplifting creates silent losses. Inventory errors cause products to disappear from the shelves without generating any revenue. Excessive promotions reduce profit margins. Insurance agreements and credit sales can delay incoming cash. Meanwhile, rent, payroll, electricity, software subscriptions, taxes, and supplier invoices continue to demand payment right on schedule. This is where most people lose money. A pharmacy can post impressive monthly revenue and still generate disappointing profits because its costs have grown faster than its sales. On the other hand, a smaller operation with excellent inventory control, minimal product losses, and a well-balanced mix of higher margin items can deliver far superior financial results. Now comes the most important part. Beyond day-to-day operations, many pharmacy owners negotiate directly with distributors, secure better purchasing terms based on volume, and use loyalty programs to increase customer retention. Every small improvement boosts profit margins, without customers noticing significant changes in the final price. However, the most important number has not appeared yet. After paying suppliers, employees, taxes, rent, administrative expenses, inventory losses, and all the hidden operating costs, how much actually ends up in the pharmacy owner's pocket? The answer seems simple, but it surprises both those dreaming of investing in this industry and those who believe every pharmacy makes a fortune simply because it is always full of customers. But before revealing that number, there's one detail that makes all the difference in the final calculation. If this documentary is helping you understand the financial realities that usually remain hidden behind the scenes, be sure to leave a like. That simple gesture helps the channel produce more documentaries like this one. Now, everything changes. After following the entire operation, it becomes clear that the real question was never how much a pharmacy sells, but how much it manages to keep after every bill has been paid. This is where the difference between revenue and profit finally becomes clear. For a well-managed independent pharmacy, the net profit margin typically falls somewhere between approximately 3% and 8% of total revenue. In exceptionally efficient operations, with outstanding purchasing management, minimal inventory losses, and a more profitable product mix, that margin can be even higher. On the other hand, stores with high operating costs or intense competitive pressure may fall below that range or even operate at a loss. These are widely accepted industry estimates and vary depending on the region, the size of the store, and the business model. That means a pharmacy generating 500,000 Rs in monthly revenue does not necessarily create 500,000 Rs in wealth for its owner. If it operates with a net profit margin of around 5%, for example, monthly profit would be approximately 25,000 Rs before distributions to partners and assuming a healthy operation. Now compare that with a pharmacy generating more than 1 million Rs in monthly revenue. Many people imagine that the owner must be earning hundreds of thousands of Rs every month. But with a similar profit margin, profits grow much more slowly than revenue. That explains why massive sales volumes do not always translate into extraordinary profits. But there is another important detail. Recovering the initial investment also requires patience. Since opening a pharmacy demands substantial capital, the time needed to recoup that investment typically ranges over several years, depending on management efficiency, location, competition, and overall economic conditions. A well-run operation can shorten that timeline, while poor decisions can extend it significantly. And this is exactly where many entrepreneurs make mistakes. They believe that simply opening the doors is enough to benefit from a thriving market. In reality, the true competitive advantage lies in management, negotiating better deals with suppliers, maintaining strict inventory control, reducing losses, increasing the average transaction value, building customer loyalty, and carefully managing cash flow make far more difference than simply selling more products. Is opening a pharmacy worth it? For those who have sufficient capital, strong management skills, and the willingness to operate in a highly regulated industry, it can be an excellent opportunity. Demand tends to remain steady, and an aging population supports long-term growth in the sector. On the other hand, anyone entering the business, believing that high revenue guarantees quick wealth, may be disappointed. The industry requires financial discipline, operational control, and constant attention to detail. It is precisely this combination that transforms an ordinary pharmacy into a truly profitable business. In the end, the biggest secret behind a successful pharmacy is not the boxes of medication leaving the counter, but the efficiency with which every reel is managed throughout the operation. Most people look at a crowded store and assume all that money belongs to the owner. The reality is very different. A large portion of the revenue simply keeps the business running. Real profit comes from effective management, strong supplier negotiations, cost control, and the ability to sell the right products to the right customers. That is why two nearly identical pharmacies can produce completely different financial results. One may simply survive. The other may build substantial wealth over the years. In the pharmacy business, making sales is important, but managing the business well is what truly determines how much the owner earns. Now, we'd like to hear your opinion. Do you believe opening a pharmacy is still one of the best business opportunities in the United States? Or has competition made the industry too challenging for new entrepreneurs?